Picture this. It's 1993. A young, unknown 23-year-old kid from Uvalde, Texas walks into a casting office in Austin. He's not even supposed to be there. He's a film student. He had a bit too much to drink the night before at a local bar. He has no agent, no plan, no audition scheduled. But something happens inside that room. Within minutes, the director picks up the phone and calls the studio. What he says will echo for the next 3 decades. I found him. I found our guy. That kid would go on to win the Academy Award for Best Actor. He would redefine what it means to reinvent a career in Hollywood. He would walk away from millions of dollars, voluntarily, just to find himself. His name is Matthew McConaughey, and his story doesn't go the way you'd expect. November 4th, 1969. Matthew David McConaughey is born in Uvalde, Texas, a small city near the Mexican border, better known for its rodeos than its red carpets. His father, James Donald McConaughey, was a gas station owner and former semi-professional football player. His mother, Mary Kathleen, known to everyone as Kay, was a kindergarten teacher and a genuine force of nature. Matthew was the youngest of 3 boys, and from the start he was the wild card. The McConaughey's moved around. Uvalde, Longview, back again. His parents divorced, then remarried, then divorced again, then remarried a 3rd time. Raw, real, unfiltered, and absolutely proud of it. School was never Matthew's obsession, but storytelling was. He was magnetic, funny, a natural performer. He was the kid everyone liked. Not because he worked at it, but because he couldn't help it. Here's something most people don't know about Matthew McConaughey. His first dream wasn't acting. It was law. He enrolled at the University of Texas at Austin with full intentions of becoming an attorney. His parents wanted stability, security, a profession with a title. But then a book changed everything. During his freshman year, McConaughey stumbled upon The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And a thought crept in that he couldn't shake. What if the life he was building wasn't the life he was meant to live? He switched his major to film. His parents weren't thrilled, but Matthew had made up his mind. He studied directors. He watched classic performances obsessively. Dustin Hoffman, Paul Newman, Robert De Niro. He wanted to understand what made a person disappear into a role. Destiny had its own plan. Let's be real about something. Before Matthew McConaughey was famous, before anyone cared who he was, there was a string of years where nothing seemed to be working. His early years in Austin were scrappy. He bartended. He took odd jobs. He even spent time in Australia as a chicken coop cleaner through a student exchange program after high school. He shoveled chicken manure, slept in hostels, and learned what it felt like to have absolutely nothing. That experience did something to him. It stripped away pretension. It showed him he could survive discomfort, and it gave him a hunger that never quite left. Back in Austin, he was nobody. A film student with big dreams and an empty wallet. The entertainment industry is ruthless. Most people who want to be actors spend their entire lives wanting it. They audition hundreds of times and never get the call. They convince themselves to give it one more year. Then one more year. Then one more year. Matthew McConaughey was dangerously close to being one of those stories, and then a chance encounter in a bar changed the trajectory of his entire life. Austin, Texas. A bar called Trudy's. Matthew McConaughey is nursing a drink when he meets Don Phillips, a casting director working on a coming of age film for director Richard Linklater. The film is called Dazed and Confused. Phillips is immediately struck by McConaughey's natural magnetism. There's something about him. Something loose and easy and completely authentic that you simply can't teach. He invites Matthew to come meet the director the next day. McConaughey shows up. He reads for the part of David Wooderson, a 20-something who still hangs around the high school parking lot, philosophizing about nothing, self-aware about being a loser. And somehow that makes him cool. The character has one of the most iconic lines in 1990s cinema. A line that would follow Matthew McConaughey for the rest of his life. All right. 3 words. Improvised on set in the moment. McConaughey later said he was channeling Jim Morrison backstage at a concert. He borrowed those words, and they became his signature. Dazed and Confused was released in 1993. It wasn't a massive box office hit initially, but it became a cult classic almost instantly. And audiences kept asking the same question: who was T-Hat Guy? After Dazed and Confused, Hollywood came calling fast. In 1996, McConaughey landed the lead in A Time to Kill, opposite Sandra Bullock and Samuel L. Jackson. Time magazine put him on their cover. He was officially a star. Then came the rom-coms. For nearly a decade, McConaughey became the go-to leading man for romantic comedies: The Wedding Planner, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Failure to Launch. Film after film. Charming, shirtless, breezy. The money was extraordinary. Door 10 to 15 million per picture. But something was wrong. By the late 2000s, McConaughey was one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood, and one of the least respected. Critics mocked his films. Late night hosts made him the punchline of jokes. The consensus was brutal, pretty face, forgettable movies. So Matthew McConaughey did something almost no A-list star had ever done voluntarily. He walked away. He turned down every romantic comedy that came his way. He said no to the 10 million checks. He retreated to Austin, spent time with his family, and waited. 18 months of silence, no films, no press. Just waiting for the right project. Hollywood noticed. And slowly, the scripts began to change. 2011, The Lincoln Lawyer, a gritty legal thriller. Magic Mike and Killer Joe, dark, complex, fearless. 2013, Mud, a quiet, devastating Southern drama that reminded everyone what acting looked like. And then, the role that put it all beyond debate. 2013, Dallas Buyers Club. McConaughey plays Ron Woodruff, a real-life Texas electrician who contracts HIV in the 1980s and smuggles unapproved drugs into the country to help fellow AIDS patients. To play the role, McConaughey lost 47 pounds. He became skeletal, unrecognizable. The performance was haunting, unforgettable, undeniable. On March 2, 2014, Matthew McConaughey walked to the Academy Award podium and accepted the Oscar for Best Actor. His speech became instantly famous, not for being polished, but for being deeply, unmistakably him. "Who's your hero?" he asked the audience. "It's me in 10 years. The crowd sat in stunned, moved silence. They started calling it the McConaissance, a Hollywood rebirth unlike anything the industry had seen before. And it was entirely self-made. There's a question worth sitting with. What if Matthew McConaughey had never walked into Trudy's bar that night in 1992? What if Don Phillips had been sitting somewhere else? What if he'd stayed in law school and lived a perfectly ordinary life in Austin, Texas? We'll never know. But what we do know is this: the path that made McConaughey a legend wasn't a straight line. It was a detour through small-town Texas, a chicken farm in Australia, a decade of movies the critics hated, and 18 months of voluntary silence in a town that values noise above everything else. He didn't get the McConaissance because he played it safe. He got it because he was willing to lose it all. The money, the fame, the easy life, in order to find out what he was actually capable of. In his memoir, Greenlights, he wrote about finding the moments that say go, and having the courage to move when they appear. 3 words improvised in a parking lot in 1993 became the defining phrase of a generation. All right, all right, all right. Not a script, not a strategy. Just a young man from Texas, unpolished, unplanned, and completely himself. Showing up and letting life happen. That's the McConaughey story. And if you ask him, he's just getting started.